Welcome to the ATMA podcast, where we share the tips, tools, and strategies you'll need to help your business be successful. I'm your host, Storie, and today we have on the show none other than the CEO of Advent Trinity Marketing Agency, Mr. Bryan Acosta. Welcome, Bryan.
Hey. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate you. We had some technical difficulties before trying to figure this thing out. But we're here now.
Hey, as long as we made it, that's all that matters, right? As long as you show up.
Yeah, we'll edit the rest of the stuff later. Don't worry.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today? We are talking about the foundation of great marketing. And what is that? That's strategy.
Yes, strategy. So
let's just dive into the basics. Why a structured and essential strategy is so important and helps you save time, money, and frustration. Let's start with the basics, Bryan. Why do so many businesses skip this?
They skip the strategy. I think a lot of people skip strategy when it comes to marketing because you're innovative with all this information online, right?
Of course.
That marketing is easy, business is easy. Look at me, I did it. If you did it my way, you could get the same results. And I think the problem, no, I don't think the problem is that is so false, right? And because there's so much competition in today's age and world that you have to be able to compete, right? You have to be able to compete throughout the competitors and understand that doing things differently, right? You have to do different to compete. Because if you're doing the same thing as your competitors, you all are generating the same results, which means that the market becomes saturated, and then you're really not generating anything at that point, right?
Right.
And then your competitors, they're not going to let you compete like that.
So what's the cost of not having a strategy in your mind, in your mindset, and since you've been with Advent Trinity and launched a lot of other businesses as well? What would you say the cost of not having a strategy?
The cost of not having strategy is that you're taking a massive risk with your business, right? And we all know that risk is inevitable when it comes to business and marketing.
Of
right?
course.
Like everybody takes a risk. In fact, the reason I have my tablet is because I wanted to bring this data up and this information up into this this podcast was the statistics, right? Real numbers. So I always say that 97% of businesses fail, but let's take a deeper dive into the reality.
Okay.
So 20.4% of businesses fail within their first year. Okay. 49.4% fell within the first 5 years. Okay. 65.3% fell within the first 10 years.
Wow.
Right. So, and then, okay, so you have, all right, I see, the failure rate, yada, yada. Okay. Well, now let's take a look at the marketing.
Right. What did they do?
Well, no. The marketing statistics. Let me take a look at this marketing statistics. This is what's going to scare you.
Okay.
Right? So, the average website conversion rate across industries is 2.35%.
And conversion rate meaning people that come to your website, look at something, click on it, and become a client.
Inquire.
Okay.
Yeah. Inquiry.
Okay. Wow.
2.35%. And e-commerce conversion rate averages anywhere from 2 to 4%. And that varies for industry. And the thing is that these are very low numbers, right?
They are very low.
Okay. Email marketing, boost average ROI of $36 to $40. Email marketing is pretty good, right? ROI. But you look at the 3%, you look at the 2%, and that's so why would I spend money on digital marketing is what some people are, if that's such low, right? And it's because you don't know the numbers. You don't know the numbers to understand how to strategize.
Okay,
right?
So how do we find those numbers?
The numbers is basically already here. You already have in your mindset 2 to 3%, which means if you only have 2 to 3% of success rate, right?
Right.
Of marketing, you don't want to just throw money at marketing.
And hope for the best.
Exactly.
Right? It seems like a huge waste of money trying to figure out what works.
Right. And it's not just the business owners. Okay. It's all marketers too. Like if marketers don't actually sit down and do the strategy, and there's some marketers out there, right?
Quote unquote.
And if they don't sit down and actually do the strategy, where they actually sit down and figure out exactly what kind of campaign, who am I trying to target market, who am I trying to be in front of, what message am I trying to perceive to them, right? Then that 2% could easily be less than 1%.
Wow.
Right? And so you're taking a gamble. Anytime you do a business, right, you take a gamble.
Right. Absolutely.
And in marketing, it's the same thing. You're gambling, you're taking a risk. And the fact that people don't sit down and actually, think about what they're actually going to be doing, strategizing, is just baffling to me. We as a company, we do a discovery.
That's what I was going to ask next. So can you walk us through how Advent Trinity approaches planning a campaign before anything's built?
Yes. So we do discovery, right?
Okay.
In fact, we recently stopped doing, we stopped engaging clients without doing discovery. Like if you come to us and you want marketing and you don't do a discovery, we just won't do marketing for you. And here's why. So we've taken a look at the numbers internally. And those who did not do a discovery have a higher risk of failure than those who did discovery. Okay?
Absolutely.
Those who did discovery have a higher success rate than those who didn't do discovery. And what is a discovery, right? The discovery is where we sit down, we first get to know the customer and the client but we get to know them more than they know themselves.
Absolutely. Right. And bring up those questions, right? That really make them think, is this what my prospect is? Yes,
exactly. Like, do they even know who, because in their heads, they have an idea of who their target market is. They have an idea of their prospects. They have an idea of what's going to work, but they don't have the data. Okay.
Right.
And so part of the discovery is the research, right? Is understanding the data. Who are we going to be in front of? What is it going to take? How much money is it going to take? What are those the cost per clicks for the keywords? All of those is data that we utilize to figure out, okay, how much advertising dollars do you really need in order for us to get a return on investment?
Absolutely. You always say that data doesn't lie, right? Yep. So if we're seeing results, pros or cons from your competitors, we can learn from that, right? And that's only through data and investigation into what exactly you're doing and how others are doing it, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And so, so we do the research and then we do a full marketing plan, okay? And that marketing plan, we sit down and after we've reviewed the research, we go through the data, we start to figure out, okay, what channels are we doing? Who's our persona? How are we going to engage, right? And you would think, well, shouldn't every marketing company do that? And you're absolutely right.
You would assume that that's what happens, right?
Right. But here's the thing. A lot of business owners, when they think, okay, they should be doing that, but they should be doing it a part of my service fee, right? And that's not true.
It's absolutely not. I would say most of our clients come to us from those type of agencies.
Yeah. And they're like, well, it didn't work before. Well, because they didn't do strategy. So what they did was a cookie cutter marketing plan. They did a cookie cutter ad campaign that they did for somebody else that it worked. And so they're doing the same thing for you, right? And now that's because, and all of a sudden it's not working. They said that was going to work, but it's not working. And it's like, yes, because you are different from your competitor. Right.
What are the key metrics? Are you saying that the key metrics and tools you use to look at first are what their audience is really and what channels? And when you say channels, do you mean social media or do you mean Google? What channels?
So let me walk you through this because it kind of varies from client to client, right?
Right.
So, when we're doing discovery, like I said, the first phase is just understanding the business. The second phase is that market research, okay? So if a client comes to us and says, well, I think I need to be on Google. All right, well, Google has many factors of ranking. You've got local SEO. You've got local service ads. You got Google ads. You got PPC. You've got, Gemini now, right? It's just AI. And so it's like, okay, so let's find out what the real estate is, right? And what's my best investment there? And then you have to take, well, if I'm going to do PPC, how much do those keywords actually cost? Right. And how competitive is it, right? And so, like, every industry is different. And if I can at least understand the keyword competitives, especially in your geographic area, then you're better to invest your marketing dollars, right?
Which is part of your discovery analysis, right? Finding those key phrases and those keywords that are going to give you more exposure, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. And then you got the keyword research, right? And then, so that's just PPC. Another part of discovery is let's say we get a customer and they have a brand new concept, because we've gotten this before. They have a brand new concept. Okay. When you have a brand new concept, is there a market for this product? Okay.
Right.
And, I always ask this question. Do you know the root word of marketing?
What is the root word of marketing?
Market.
Absolutely.
It's market, right? So the market. Is there a market? Do you understand the market? Is there supply? And in market, it's very simple. It's supply and demand,
yes.
right? And so is there a demand for this product or service that you're offering? Okay. And how competitive is it, right? Is it saturated? Does anybody know anything about this? And they were like, well, there's not competition because nobody's doing what we're doing. That is wrong. There is always competition.
Right.
Always competition.
That's why we have industries, right?
Well, they're industries, but just because your product solves a solution doesn't mean that another product or service doesn't solve that solution as well.
Absolutely.
And it may be solving it in a different way, and you're still competing for attention, right?
Absolutely.
And so, and then how well will your product or service be? How well will your product or service be accepted in the market is another question. And so all of that research dictates how you're going to do the next campaign.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you're thinking, well, there's a lot of questions in the air. And if you're listening right now and you're like, man, that gives me a lot of questions. I'm starting to think about all kinds of things with my business. You're right. Because you don't just want to build a campaign. You don't just want to build a website. You want to build the right message, the right campaign, and be in front of the right person at the right time. Because if the numbers are true, which they are, and then only, what was it? 2.35% of website conversions happen on the website, then you only have 2.35% chance to get somebody's attention.
And the word you said, time. Are you in front of your audience at the right time frame? In the discovery, which I think is a key factor in the longevity of how long your business lasts, is are you planning appropriately? If it is a new business that no one's ever touched, how long does the brand awareness phase take until you have conversions?
Right. And so a lot of those questions, they aren't answered in the strategy. Because, time is ETAs, right?
Right.
Everything is about ETA. We can get an idea of how long it will take, but there's no direct answer. And that's the thing, is like marketers always want to guarantee something, right?
And you can't.
You can't guarantee return on investment. What you can't, this is what we can guarantee. Anybody who's listening can guarantee, this is what you can be guaranteed. You can be guaranteed clicks to your website. You can be guaranteed visitors to your page, engagement. All those things can be guaranteed. What can't be guaranteed is you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't force the water to drink. I mean, you can't force the horse to drink, right?
Absolutely.
And so here's the issue, though. I believe in that. That's true. Okay. Now, there is a flip side to that, because I do believe that you can convince the horse to drink only if you know what the horse is thinking and how to communicate it to it.
How do you learn and know what the horse is thinking?
You have to do strategy. You have to plan.
Yes.
You have to strategize. You have to plan. You have to get into the mind of the user, right? And so that's part of the strategy, is like, before you build anything, do you know who your customers are? And do you know who your prospects are? Do you know what they like? Do you know where they live? Do you truly know? And a lot of people are like, I truly know. Well, if you can't write a Bible on your customer, you don't know.
Right. So how do you balance creativity with data when building marketing strategies?
So you take that data, right?
Right.
And then based on that data, you're then able to create personas. Okay, so you're able to create make-believe customers that resemble the customers that you currently have. You're able to then, and if you've done your data and you kind of figure out, their lingo, right? You're able to do like a brand voice. Okay.
Okay.
So let me put this in perspective. We actually have two customers that are in two different states. Okay. One in Texas, one in New Mexico. Okay. I am not going to say the same thing I say in Texas as I do in New Mexico. No. There's two different brand voices, two different ways to say it, two different ways of in basically engaging those customers. You have to say things differently. You just have to, right?
Absolutely.
You can't expect to go from one market, which is Texas, and do the same thing in New Mexico.
Right, or New York for that matter.
And it doesn't even matter if they're the same service or product. Okay, the way you say things in Texas are going to be different than when you say in New Mexico.
And it matters.
And it does matter, right? And so that's where that data, right? That data, the interest and behaviors, all those things, that kind of data, that's where that balls in. Is because what are we saying that they are going to actually engage in? They're going to like, right?
Right.
And it's easier when you have a local marketing company because they're local, right? And
of
so
course.
They understand that, like we're based in Texas, so we know everything in and out of Texas.
Right.
But if we're going to market to somebody in New Mexico, we have to understand how they speak, what they like, what they don't like.
Right.
Okay? Build a brand voice behind that so that it gets accepted in that market.
Of course.
You got it's like the North and the South. You would not do the same Southern hospitality type marketing in the South than you would do in the North.
Right. And calling someone ma'am even is completely different here than it is in New Jersey. Sometimes that's seen negatively. So being a marketing company, not only do we have to do that deep dive analysis, but our networking partners really come into play when we're doing things outside of our state, understanding their demographic and their verbiage and how they do it. And that all comes into play when we create the strategy for a client, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So tell me, what's a strategy myth that you see entrepreneurs fall for all the time?
A strategy myth that's a good question. So a myth, I guess a myth would be is I can do the same strategy as somebody else. If I can copy that strategy, I'll get the same return on investment. And that is a huge, huge waste of time.
Why?
Because if you're doing exactly what your competitors are doing, they're going to adjust. And all you're gonna do is be behind the ball. You're gonna be behind your competitors 100% of the time. It doesn't matter, what you're doing. If all you're doing is copying your competitors, right? And you think that I'm going to get the same return on investment, well, think about these larger corporations, right? This take us in perspective. Let's not take it to small companies anymore. Let's think about big corporations. Big corporations, right? You talk about these massive, in honesty, we're in the tech company, right? In the technology world, in the tech world, the software world, once you replicate a same solution as a software, they're already on to the next. And all you're doing is playing behind the ball.
Catch up.
You have to eventually catch up to them. And then you have to then advance them with a different solution that they don't even have, right? That's how you overthink the market, right? And so you overcome the market by doing something different. So, if the market is always changing and people in business are always changing, then why are people trying to do the same marketing as other people?
And when you're doing the same marketing as other people, are you factoring in the price point that's going to cost you?
Right, exactly. Because if you're, bidding, right? So let's just say I want to do exactly the same thing as my competitor. Well, if okay, so let's just say Google, for example.
Ooh,
okay,
that's a big one.
So Google, it's about bidding for keywords. You have the same keywords. You have the same exact plan as your competitor. Same keywords. You put neck to neck, right? That value of that keyword is going to get higher and higher and higher, and eventually it's going to be out of your budget.
What do you mean by value of keyword? So the more someone uses it, the more Google charges for you to utilize it, right?
Because saturation.
It's important to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens is like, you're trying to do the same thing as your competitors, but you don't realize that you're just actually blowing money instead of trying to do something different to gain partials of those tractions of the market. Remember, the root word of marketing is market.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get parts of the market in different ways and then eventually compete with your competitors or outcompete your competitors to take portions of that market, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's why strategy is so important. And a lot of people, they misperceive strategy as like, okay, I don't need to think about it. I just really need a marketing company. I know I need social media.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And here's the deal. Everybody knows they need social media. Everybody knows they need a website. Everybody knows they need to be on Google. Everybody knows that they need to be somewhere, right, on the internet. They need an online presence. But what is the actual strategy that you're going to be doing and so we have a structured plan, right?
Right.
We have the build, launch, grow, scale philosophy, which we're going to go through this entire show. I'm excited to do this, right? But the reason why I wanted to start with strategy first is because everybody wants to build.
Oh, always.
I want my website. I want to look awesome, right? I want the videos. I want the photos.
I need to have somewhere for them to go to.
Exactly. Okay, so but I need you to do it. Okay, so you need me to strategize. Correct. Yes. So we need to sit down, take time, which we're not talking a day. No, we're not talking a day. We're talking about a few days, probably weeks, to actually understand this business, map this out, completely map this out, where we have a calculated risk, which is funny because we talked about risk at the very beginning of this, right?
Yes.
Marketing is a risk. Business is a risk. And one of my mentors, right, he'll always say this because he actually invests in stocks, okay, is are we taking a calculated risk in this marketing venture, okay? Right. So if we're going to build the website, the social media, all that stuff, right, do we have the right data to say the right message? Do we have the right data to get in front of the right people? How much is it actually going to cost?
And on what platforms, right?
And on what platforms, right? And here's the thing. A lot of people, when I ask them what their budget is, what's their answer?
They don't know their budget. You tell me.
Yeah, I don't know my budget. Can you tell me? That's why, well, if you want me to tell you what your budget is, then you have to do a discovery. You have to understand your market. And if we're going to research your market, we're going to do all the strategy, we're going to research, we're going to gather all that data to tell you the answers that you've been looking for on how much you're actually supposed to be spending, right?
To be competitive.
You're going to have to pay for that. You look at all these bigger organizations. I mean, this isn't a norm, right? People know this. Businesses buy data. Successful businesses. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Successful businesses buy data. They go out and they buy data. They go out and they buy research. Well, Bryan, they got money. No, they're taking calculated risk. Something that 97% of the businesses aren't doing.
They know what they're walking into.
And so a lot of businesses fail because they don't know what they're walking into. They don't know, how much they're supposed to be spending. Okay?
Right. Or, you know what, if they're being taken advantage of, to have a 6 to 12 month plan of what you should be spending based on the data and the analysis is huge. Because if you're going to other places, they're like, no, we're going to charge you this month up front and it'll take a month. After this discovery, whether or not that's really factual based on the data.
Yeah, and most businesses, they spend a lot less than that they're supposed to. Let's just be honest, right? They're supposed to be spending, if they do the real data, they do the real strategy, and they're like, okay, I understand how competitive it is. And there's like, but, that's not part of my budget. Then you need funding, right? You need funding. You need to have funding for your business and organizations to take it to the next level. And I hate to say that, but it's the truth. If you're going to compete, you need funding, right? Name me one competitor that didn't have some sort of funding to compete. Right?
Interesting. That somewhat leads me to my next question. For someone just starting out, what's the first step to creating a real marketing strategy other than funding? One, establishing whether or not you need it, right? And what's the next step?
I mean, the first step is knowing what you're walking into. That is the number one step. For any business owner out there, for any small business owner, the first step to them is just understanding what they're walking into. And the first thing they got to do is understand how much money they actually need, right?
Right.
And so, it's funny because, companies come to us all the time. Here's my business plan. I have a marketing plan. And I look at their marketing plan. I said, this is not a marketing plan. Okay. What this is your vision of how this marketing is supposed to work, and not an actual marketing plan.
And it's great to have a vision, but to be competitive and to not waste your money, you really have to have some type of strategy that's pulled from people who know what they're doing and what buckets to put it in, right?
Right. So let me give you a difference between a real marketing plan and a marketing plan that, people just put together, right?
Okay.
So most marketing plans are generic. They have the same information, which is the target market. All of that's been taught, right? A real marketing plan has data, though. And that's the secret. That's the secret between a marketing plan, which I think this is going to work, to a marketing plan that I know is going to calculate a risk, is the data. Can you tell me how much these keywords cost? Can you tell me how many people live in the city? Can you tell me how many based on the people that are living in the city, how many people are actually interested? Can you tell me, how many people based on the city, right? How many impressions are we thinking about getting? Okay,
right.
To get those engagements, to get those conversions, and then based on that data, how much budget do I actually need in order for me to get the conversion? And so what people do is they walk in and they're like, "Look, listen, I know they're in Texas. I know that they, that they love candy, right? I don't know, I was just saying something, right? I know they love candy, so I know they're gonna buy."
See, and we have seen a lot of clients in that same situation that are seasoned.
Mm-hmm.
They've already begun their business, and they've said, "Yeah, I have a ton of following," but we do the analysis as to whether or not that following are customers and whether or not they're converting, right? We've seen thousands and thousands of followers and none of them buy.
I'm telling you right now, I've seen some horror stories, okay? I've taken some clients, right, before us, okay? And, they have a large following. And a large following, it's on Facebook, right? And the following wasn't even local. It was in third world countries, okay? And it's like, well, where was your money going? And
we look into that in the strategy phase, right?
Right. What was the demographic? And we were like, this following isn't going to do you anything. I'm going to have to build you a brand new following because your followers are in a third world country, right? So we need to spend some, and if it came organically, great.
Right.
But if it came, I paid for it, then we have a real problem, right? Because now, like, why? Right?
A lot of smoke and mirrors.
Exactly. And that's another thing about our discovery and our strategy and ensuring that you have the right strategy is that you have clarity, right? Transparency.
That you can understand.
Here's the deal. Like I get it. Trust me. I run 3 companies. I run a co-working space, a software company, and a marketing agency. Every decision you make is like a telescope, right? I'm a magnifying glass. It's like, okay, something's bound to happen, okay? And every decision you make, is this the right decision or is this the wrong decision, right? And it goes back to risk, and I keep on saying that, and I keep on emphasizing that in this podcast because the risk of starting a business is high. 97% of businesses fail, okay? Only 3% truly make it. And you just saw the stats of 3%. And it's not to scare anybody, but it's the reality. It's the reality that you can't just jump into marketing. You can't just jump into business. You have to think. You have to strategize. You have to know where you're going, right? And so you have to have answers before you start investing. And so as a business owner, you're like, well, I got to make this work. And I feel for you. I do feel for you, right? And because I get it, because the financial stress, the financial burden, we all have families to feed and all this kind of stuff, right? But we're at the end of the day, we're all in competition, right?
Every single day. So, Bryan, for a final closing question from me, what are some quick wins? Any tips people can get just by analyzing their current data differently?
Quick wins. So quick wins would be, who do you have customers? That's number one.
Okay.
And who are the customers? And you also have to think about, are they the right customers?
Yeah.
You know, I know this for a fact, like as your business grows, your market changes, right? Which is another thing, right? Your business may not be doing the same thing as it was doing last year as this year, which is why I think you need to do strategy every year. Right?
Absolutely. Reevaluate where you are.
Yeah.
Are your customers referral partners?
Yep. Yeah. And so to do a quick win, to be honest with you, to do a quick win is to analyze who your current customers are right now. Who is their target market? How old are they? How do they find us? Right. And then, what did they like about just doing interviews with your current customers? And that way you can kind of understand at least your persona. Right. And when you build out your persona, then you can kind of expand on that and saying, okay, now that I know my persona, now I know who they are, what they like to do, how old are they, that kind of stuff. Now we can start to expand. Okay.
Right.
They live on Facebook, they live on Google. Okay. All right. Now we can start to expand on that marketing plan, slowly but surely get you to a true marketing plan. The thing where you're going to have to define the data that you are going to need an expert in is the data. Right. And so if you have that information, now what is the data that you're not seeing? Right. The keywords, the change in even real estate agents, they have to know this too, right?
Absolutely.
Who's moving in and who's moving out of cities, things of that nature. And so a lot of it's about data, right? Strategizing for data. And then so here's kind of what I want to go through before we start answering questions is, I know people are like, okay, well, I understand this is a lot of information, right?
Absolutely.
So here's what it boils down to. It boils down to, a few things, right? And I kept on repeating myself, but bear with me. I'm going to go through this entire marketing plan in my head right now, right, Cook? So first off, it's what is the business? Okay, what is your executive summary?
Right.
Okay, who are you? What do you do? What are your service? What are your products? What do you have to offer?
Okay.
And is it something that the market demands? So supply and demand, right? Is it going to be accepted in the market? So who are you as a business? That's an overview of your business, right?
Okay.
And then we get into the target market. Okay. So then we get into the target market is, who are your customers, right? How old are they? Yada, 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 right? Interests, behaviors, things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Genders, all of that stuff. Okay. Now we get into demographics. Okay. Demographics is, where do they live? Okay. Where do they live? How big are these cities? Right. What zip codes? And what in the demographic, is that demographic changing?
Interesting.
Because we live in Texas. You know how many people, how the landscape of Texas has changed because people from California are moving to Texas? The shift of Texas itself is changing.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, it's always been a little different from depending on where you go. North, south, east, west. It's like a completely different state.
The mentality of Texas is completely changing, and you have it's slowly but surely changing.
Yes.
And it's going to change eventually. It's just how markets work. Same thing with California, same with New York. So demographics, right? So then you have the demographics. All right. So now your business, your target market, your demographic. Then you get into the digital landscapes. Okay. So then you go into channels. Right. And you go into channels. You go into Google. Are they on Google? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they on X? Are they on TikTok? Based on their target demographic and the target market and the demographic. The behaviors and interests will tell you and dictate what channels you want to be on, right? Is it Google? We talked about that earlier. How much am I supposed to be investing in Google? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Okay. So you got channels.
And whether or not, I would like to add on to that, whether or not your channels are reaching that demographic, because I can have a lot of people on LinkedIn that I know are completely different demographic than the people I'm going to find on Instagram that are buyers, right? Those are important. So if you're dumping money into one thing that's not benefiting you at the end of the day or reaching your demographic, this is why you need a strategy.
Yep, exactly. And so, you get down to the channels, okay? And then here we go. It gets beyond that, right? And that's why. So you're now okay. So I've already done some work. I've got the channels. All right, what technology am I using in the company?
Ooh.
So what technology am I going to use to build what I'm about to build? Okay. So now you're now that just threw a lot of business owners into a deep dive right here, because there's so many CRMs, there's so many website builders, there's so many, all this other stuff. There's so much technology. There's so much technology. You get overwhelmed. You're like, I don't know what to do.
And how much money you should spend on each of those, right?
Exactly. Because the technology now affects your marketing campaigns, the way you build, the way you launch, the way you grow and scale. Okay. And so what technology? I was just giving an example. We build websites on Shopify, WordPress, all kinds of stuff, right? So what CMS system are we using to build this website specifically for operations and marketing purposes? Okay. What CRM, customer relation management system? Okay. Then am I going to be using? Because see, while you're only thinking I need to get, because a lot of this was about strategy getting in front of people.
Right.
The marketing plan doesn't stop there. The marketing plan is if that 3% are going to convert, then how do you keep them converting and bringing in more people? Well, you have to have a CRM in place. What does those drip campaigns look like, right? If they fill out a form on the website. So if you fill out a form, and you got viewers on here today, and I appreciate you guys, but there's some automation happening.
Absolutely.
You're probably going to get some follow-ups after this. I'm sorry about that, but it's all automation, right? It's how do we keep engaged with people that are viewing online? And
is your CRM collecting the data you need to re-engage the people that want to be?
Exactly. And so that's part of the marketing plan, okay? That's part of the marketing strategy, right? It's not just how much money am I spending on advertising, it's how much money am I spending on technology. All of this has to do with then going back to the budget. See, so once you have all this information, then you now have to break the budget up. Now you have to dissect the budget. How much am I spending on advertising as far as Google campaigns, Facebook ads, right? To get awareness.
Just the brand awareness.
Just the brand awareness. How much money do I need to get people to, hey, here I am, click on me, go to my website?
Right.
How much money do I need to spend to where now they're on the website? Did I build a beautiful website that actually has enough information, enough video, enough photography to get them to engage?
Absolutely.
Okay. How much money budget do I need to then, if only 3% converted, okay, if only 3% converts, how much money do I need to spend to get in front of them again?
Or get them to buy again. E-commerce is going to be completely different.
Right. Well, if they, have you ever gone to a website? Have you ever gone to a website and then you go to social media and you feel like they're following you?
Oh, absolutely.
Those are called retargeting ads. It's because we're trying to get you to convert. So now how much money do you have allocated for retargeting ads?
Which gets my husband every time, by the way.
It gets me too. Okay. And then you have, so you have the conversion portion of the budget,
right? Which
is retargeting ad campaigns, things that will help with, conversion specifically, getting leads. And then you have, you notice that we're going through the awareness, engagement, conversion, delight.
Yep.
Okay. So here we go. So you get them to convert. Do you have a strategy in place to get them to be excited? Right? Like onboarding, welcome packets, promotional goods, things of that nature, to say, hey, you're part of the team. That also needs to be a part of your marketing strategy.
To ask them to be referral partners if you had a great experience.
Well, you just beat me to the punch here, because all I'm trying to do is get you excited and delighted. I'm happy that you're happy about my service and product. I'm happy that you're part of the team, which is in the advocation, which is in how much budget do I have to advocate to get more reviews, testimonial videos, referrals, right? do you see how much complexity we just went through? And that was a lot of time, right?
Absolutely.
Right? That takes time to figure out and map out. See, when you're doing strategy, you're not just sitting there saying, I got an idea, I'm going to copy my competitors, because that's what happens all the time. I got an idea, I'm going to copy my competitors. If they did it, I can do it. No.
We utilize almost every point person on our team to help create this strategy for each client. Do we not?
Yep. You have to figure out each departmental expert and then figure out exactly how to invest your money. And so here's what I'm going to actually do right now, is because I know we're running out of time here, okay? But I'm looking at people, and there's got to be a switch, okay? You have to know when to flip the switch. Are you a business owner or are you an investor? Okay. And
First, figure that out, right?
No, hold on, because you have to be both if you're a small business owner. So if you're a small business owner, you are too an investor. Okay. And you have to know how to flip the switch. A business owner's role is to manage, operate. Okay. An investor's role is to understand what they're investing in. And so if you can't understand how to invest in marketing, then you shouldn't be investing in marketing, right? And so that's why we have to choose. We have to tell people, you have to do a discovery. You have to do a discovery, because that is your roadmap to understand what you're investing in, right? Absolutely. It's not my roadmap. I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to help you invest your money in your business. And so you have to understand your blueprint. You have to understand how you're going to market and how you're going to invest in your marketing. Okay. And so that's what we do. When we do a discovery, when we do a strategy session, it's not for us to protect, it's not for us just to take money. It's actually our fiduciary responsibility. I stole that from financial advisors.
I like that.
Fiduciary responsibility to protect your money as the investor. So you understand exactly where your money's going and how we're going to build, launch, grow, and scale your marketing.
Right, because we're not setting people up for failure. For them to be successful is a referral for us to be successful, wouldn't you say?
Exactly. Their success, your success is our success, right? And so we just don't want you to be unsuccessful, right? And so I think we're in the Q&A time, right?
Yeah, we can start answering a couple of questions. One of the questions I had is, how do I know if I'm targeting the right audience?
You'll know you're targeting the right audience if, honestly, if they're engaging, right? Take a look at the engagement. You first take a look at the engagement to see if they're even responding. Are they even, messaging you on Facebook? Are they commenting on Facebook? Are they inquiring? Okay.
Right.
Another thing is to know if you're actually targeting the right target market is, once those engagements coming in, is analyzing those forms. I've seen this happen. This happens all the time. Okay, so you will get spammed, and if you get spammed, you're doing something right, but you need to do some enhancements, and you're also doing something wrong. Okay, because this happened to us. I mean, we got a bunch of Russian forms being filled out.
Yes. Tons of them over a month period of time, right? And they weren't converting. I was spending more time on qualifying whether or not it was spam or real than I was on actually having the introductory calls with people that needed me.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where you'll know if you're targeting the right market when inquiries start coming. If they're real, and they're actually inquiring and they're legitimate, you're targeting the right audience.
Okay, so another question I had, which kind of leeways after this one, is how long should I test a campaign before I pivot?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so typically at least 2 weeks. So you have to have something. Okay, a lot of people want to pivot like on the same day. They're like, oh, let me just launch this campaign. It's not working. We got to change something. It's not working. I'm spending money. It's not working. It's like frantic, right? And I get it, because we're investing money, but you can't be frantic when you're an investor.
So about 2 weeks to see if a campaign's working. It's kind of like the stock market. It goes up and down, but
It's exactly like the stock market.
Yeah.
Because what's the root word of marketing?
Market. I think we've all learned that today. Okay, and the last question I have right now is, when should I invest in ads, before or after my strategy is built? I'm assuming this question was asked before you went through the last portion of what we mentioned, but to reiterate.
So ads should never be spent unless you do a strategy and a build phase first. Okay. Mm-hmm. So you first have to strategize what you're going to be doing. Then you have to build the assets. There's no point of advertising if you don't have the right campaign, the right video, the right image, you have to have the right message to get out there, because, everybody wants to advertise because they want leads now. But if you don't have the funds to build the right campaign before you start advertising, you're already dead in the water. Right. And so don't advertise without the right proper campaign first. Strategize first, build the message, right? So strategize first. Then we build the message, the website, the social, the social media campaigns, the commercial, whatever we're going to be doing, and then we advertise, right? Make sure you have the proper assets, which is going to be leading into the next phase, which is building, right? Which is next episode next week. It's about building, and we're taking this step by step. So today was strategy. Next week is build. Then we got launch, grow, scale, right?
Absolutely.
But if we're going to be talking about building the right assets before you launch. So by the end of this podcast, you'll know the entire structure of Advent Trinity and how we've been successful in helping businesses.
And that's what I was going to mention. If any of our viewers out there got value from today, it's because strategy works. It's backed by data and delivered with purpose. And who better to tell us how it works than the person that's helping do it for himself, the CEO of this digital marketing agency. So please subscribe on whatever you're viewing this on, and come see us next week for the next phase of this, because throughout the next few weeks, you could really change the whole way your business is successful. We'll see you next time on Market It with ATMA.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.